brothers and sisters. Okay, I think we're about at number 27 now. And this will be, we won't do this all right now, but this will be, you know, you do other tasks other than when I'm giving talks in the morning. And so something I'd like you to prepare, you know, as a group is to come up with a list of things that might happen the first day of school and how you plan to deal with them. And maybe we could just have a few suggestions on what kind of things might come up the first day of school. We don't have to say how to deal with them yet, just what kind of things might arise the first day of school.
Like student refuse to go inside the classroom, all those of things.
They what?
Any particular student refuse to go inside because they are sick to their parents.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's quite a good chance that will happen.
Especially the age 5.
Actually, maybe we can just discuss a little bit. What kind of thing can you do if a child doesn't want to go into class?
What can do is allow their parents to get in class with them.
Yeah. Actually, that would be my suggestion also.
That's the norm in all the schools.
Yeah.
They can see adult student at the back of the class.
Actually, they in the West they tend not to do that. They, you know, don't let the parents go in. They just actually a teacher just sort of takes the child by the arm and not quite drags them, but almost drags them in, which I think is a very bad idea. Sure. So, I mean, that's a relatively easy one then. We just let the parents come in and stay for a while as long as they need to. I mean, some of the parents might need to go somewhere else, so they will have to make the break. What about if after the parent leaves, the child is sitting in the class crying?
We need to sit down and talk to the little kids. Also for what you know.
I think when the child comes in, the parent, the teacher, and the child should sit together and read. The mother is going to read, and he would have to sit with the teacher.
Start what?
Start to cry.
Start to cry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, the parent comes in, stays for a while, then the parent's going to leave from the classroom.
I think we need to tell the parent to introduce ourselves to the kids. So that you sit here, this is my rep, authoritative. Whenever I'm not around, he is going to take care of you. Don't get afraid, don't get worried. Listen to you. He's willing to listen to you as well. We need the parents to tell them to the kids.
And maybe we can get the other kids in the classroom who are feeling okay. We can get, you know, maybe somebody to sit with them and say, you know, oh, you don't need to cry, it will be fun. Your mother or father will be back to get you later. So what other things might happen?
Children will be noisy.
Okay, well, actually, we haven't even really decided what we'll do the first day. I think the first day we can probably not have the normal start where we do a flag raising and everything. That would be difficult to do the first day. I think we really need to just get everybody together into the main hall area and have a talk with them. And maybe we can have the talk in both English and Bahasa. You know, say the same thing in both, so we could be. So Some of them will understand both, and so they'll get it twice, and that will be good. Some of them will understand at least one of them, hopefully. And I think we should tell them what kind of things we expect. Also, we are going to arrange at least one group parent meeting before the school starts, hopefully two. It's hard sometimes to get parents to come. But for the way our school is, I think we're quite likely to get most parents to come. And so we need to have a list from you also on basically what the rules in the school will be. And we will tell the parents what the rules will be, maybe give them that list and ask them to make their children familiar with what the rules will be before they come to school. Then when they come to school on the first day, we'll tell them those same rules. And of course, when you make up a list of rules, it needs to be as short as it can be while it includes everything. And the rules need to be worded simply.
We are not used to doing those words.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are certain things that we will say, like hitting is not allowed, mean words are not allowed.
There are a few hadith, short ones, that have these kind of rules in them. So those would be really nice if Brother Awal, if you could come up with those. The hadith, for example, a Muslim never hits his brother.
But however that's done, right? So this will be one of your responsibilities to have ready by the time we have the first parent meeting, is a list of the rules for the school. And I don't need to be there. I don't want to be there while you make up most of these things, but I will look them over and maybe suggest some word changes if that might help. Because sometimes I can, with language, make things a little more clear or impactful, or if there's anything missing or I think shouldn't be there, we can discuss them. But so we do need you to, a couple of then actual tasks that you'll need to do is to make up a list of rules for the school, and then also a list of things that might occur the first day and how to deal with them. So we picked it. So what if somebody on the first day, while we're having the, actually, there'll probably be quite a few parents in there with the kids the first day. I mean,
there will be parents for year 1, the 5-year-olds.
well, I think some other parents may want to come in also. We have to be prepared for quite a few parents the first day.
How to overcome high expectation of parents. On the first day, they expect the child to do something. Even on the first day, the next day they come and say, it's not happening.
I don't think we'll get that. Because we've been very selective with the parents.
Oh, you have talked to the parents?
Yeah, I've talked to every parent, and to
And the parents belong to our circle already?
almost all. Almost all. So far, all the parents either are within the circle that already is involved with Khalifa one way or another, or they are a friend or relative of somebody who is already with us. So, but what if one of the things that might arise is the children might not want to stay in their seat. So you see, we have to get these things early, right? Because the next one is remember the first day of school to some degree sets the conditions for how the school will be in the future. So sometimes schools recommend letting the children have a few weeks to adjust. But in those few weeks, the children get sort of to do almost anything they want to adjust. They get the idea that those kind of things are okay in the school. And I think giving a period of adjustment is a really bad idea. I think the children should come in and be immediately told what the environment, how they are to act in that environment, and it be very firmly enforced how the children interact in that environment. But firmly enforced, of course, always with lots of kindness. So, if somebody in your class is getting out of the seat, or also another thing that I think for the first few days would be a good idea is if whoever is doing the class, and then there's a teacher that doesn't have a class that time, be in the class. So we have 2 teachers in class for a few days to make sure, so one of the teachers' job, one of the teachers can be doing regular teaching and talking to the kids and going around doing the regular thing. The other one can be making sure the children know how to behave right. If somebody gets out of their seat, go up to them and say, oh, you have to remember, in our Khalifah school, when the teacher's teaching lessons, you have to sit in your seat. You don't get to get up. And then just, guide them back to their seat. And then when they're sitting, you say, oh, okay, thank you, that's very nice. That's how you're supposed to do it. You're not supposed to sit in your seat. And the same thing about talking out while the teacher is talking, or the way we're going to have the classroom set up, we'll have to somehow or other get the children to make the distinction between acceptable talking and non-acceptable talking. Like if they're sitting there during a math lesson and there's 3 or 4 of them in a group of desks that are kind of facing each other. And somebody wants to just talk about all sorts of other things, not school stuff. That's not okay talking. When you're sitting there doing some project or subject, that's what your attention is supposed to be on. So to some degree, the teachers can monitor that, but also we'll have to very quickly teach the children to monitor that. So as quickly as possible, and on the first day, we want to explain this to the children, although some of them won't understand how it works right off. We want them to know that it's everybody's responsibility to manage behavior in the classroom.
So that maybe we can say that first 1 month we are trying to teach them how to behave correctly.
Oh, that's very pessimistic. No, 1 month is way too long. I mean, I would really hope that within the first week, the children fall into a pattern of acceptable behavior. We remember the thing about self-fulfilling prophecies? If you think it might take a month, it's more likely to take a month. If you think it might take a week, it's more likely to take a week. And if it took 2, well, that's just the way it goes. So it takes as long as it's going to take, but we should always be optimistic about our expectations. What about if somebody's behavior in the classroom is noticeably different than all the other kids? You know, like, I mean, what if somebody is just a bit of an odd child? I would say there might be, because I haven't seen them in class. Sometimes children are different in class. But I would say you might feel 2 or even possibly 3 of the kids are a little odd in the way they act. What are you going to do about that?
I think it's not going to be a problem, right? Unless the other children pay attention to it and then start to either make fun or kind of isolate it, that's going to be a problem. Because the teacher is acting as if like he's okay. I think everybody.
Okay, so I think this is a reasonable way to deal with it, which is just let it be, and I mean, unless it's disruptive, right? And see how people respond to it. If the other kids respond to it okay, then we don't really have a problem. But if they respond to it in any negative way, you have to be really careful to watch for, is there any like negative comment or way of the other children acting towards the kids who are a little bit different, and try and fix that.
Just to tell you my experience, just a couple of years ago, I went to visit my friend's house. So like you said, this little daughter of his, whenever the guest comes, start asking the mother for the drinks, cakes, everything. Start throwing the tantrum. Then I said to myself, why don't I try that Khalifah Method? But I was talking to that little brother. I said, do you go to school? Yes. What do you do? He went and picked up her book, come to me. I looked at the book and said, very nice drawing, mashallah, nice drawing. Can you show me how to draw? Start sitting with me and show me. And then was asking, can you draw this? I said, you draw some Allah like it. Then I found later on that little girl want to sit down with me and start talking to me. I said that theory proven that I can do. She is I'm stranger to her. Then now she can sit down using that kind of suitable word that Allah like you, mashallah, very beautiful. I noticed that this kind of word really made them so. Early on was rushing, was beating up start taking the table and everything because she want more. Because the mother refused to prepare the milk for baby because we are around. She want to talk to us, but the little girl one day said, why can't you sit down? Said, you're drawing very nice everything. The moment she start listening to that thing, I noticed that she can settle down to a stranger like me and start listening. Then we are being together, say, very nice. And then to the end say, go to your mama, say sorry. Even she went to her mama, say, Mama, sorry.
This is part of this thing we've been talking about. Once a child gets to like you, they will like to do all sorts of things you ask them to do. So once the relationship is good, and if a child is doing something wrong in the classroom and you ask them to fix it, they are very likely to fix it. The teachers who have a real difficult time with discipline in the classroom are the ones the kids don't like. And so they don't feel any obligation at all. Matter of fact, usually they might want to do the opposite of what the teacher said to them. And if there are any odd behaviors, like maybe somebody will talk in a way that is obviously a bit, sounds unusual, I think later on you might want to actually try and help them fix the way they talk. There was a place when I was an undergraduate, I worked. It was called the Behavior Modification Training Center. It was a center for training children that had quite severe various kinds of problems, both physiological and neurological and behavior problems. And they were working on the basis that you had to sort of develop a program and take baseline data to you know, how the child was, and to make any change took a long time. But I went along with that then because I thought that was the way to do. Then I came back to that same area maybe 10 or 12 years, probably about 12 years later, when I'd already done several PhD programs and I'd been on a faculty, and now I was somewhat of an expert compared to being a student. And when I went, they were back to visit that place. They were still doing the same kind of thing. And there was one little boy who would go around, and because my voice is bad now, I can't do it. I can't do the imitation. But you know the term falsetto? Falsetto is when you talk in a really high voice. My voice is too low at the moment because of my cold or my chest to talk in a high voice. But do you know what I mean? The real squeaky high voice that you can make. In English, that's called a falsetto. Anyway, this little boy all the time talked in a falsetto. And so I said to them, but they had just been letting him go ahead and do that, right? Because a lot of times, I don't know why, you see, people don't try and change things. It wasn't his big problem, but it made him stand out as odd among the other kids. And really, it's best not to stand out too odd unless it's a very positive characteristic. So I mentioned that, and they said, okay, we'll design a program to, you know, and they were still going to do the same thing. They take a baseline, in other words, they observe that behavior for a while, then they come up with a program of somebody sitting with him and training him to change this, and then they keep data on that. And I said, well, you know, by then I was doing something that was called, introducing a new idea, which was called behavior modification in the natural environment. Which basically meant you don't set up an artificial situation to change a behavior. You just change the behavior in the environment as it is. So what I suggested to them is that first of all, we just show him that people can talk in different voices. And so I showed him, I can talk really high, sort of like he does, and I can talk, you know, I can talk really low, you know. But what really sounds best to the ear is the voice in the middle. And then I said to him, can you talk really low? And you know, so he did that. And when he talked low, then his voice sounded normal. I said, oh, wow, that's really nice. That sounds very good. And so I said to all of the staff there, just as he's just going around, ask him every once in a while, can he talk in that low voice, right? And then make a big deal over it, how nice that sounds. And literally within about 2 days, he had given up the high voice and was now talking in a normal voice, right? Didn't take any program, didn't take much extra time. I mean, and this kind of thing you can do, you see. You can just get things to change just by slight interactions with a child, and sometimes just telling them, getting them to model. You know, in the something I didn't mention, in the shaping process, you know, on the series of small steps, sometimes you don't get the first step. And so what you have to do, so you can get the process of shaping underway, you get the child to do the first step. Like with this boy, the first step in the shaping process was to get him to show me if he could do a low voice. And then see, now, if I had just waited till he did a low voice, then I might have never got a chance to reward him in the shaping process toward normal voice. So you just ask the child to do the thing that you want them to do to be rewarded as the first step in the shaping process. And that's a very useful thing, and you can do that many, many times. I mean, that's an extremely useful technique to do. Simple thing, but often people don't think about it. So you just ask the child to do the first step in the shaping process, then when they do it, reward them for it and say, that's really great. And so maybe with this child who has an unusual pattern of communicating, something like that can be done. But this can be done with other things also. Lots of things can be handled in what's called the natural environment. You don't have to set up an artificial situation to teach them that. You just sort of get them started by getting getting an early step in the shaping process going, and then look for instances to just in the ongoing environment to reward them for it. And now, what if on the first day of school somebody throws a tantrum in the classroom? I mean, that's a possibility.
So he's been explained rules, so no tantrums. He has to sit and think about his behavior.
I faced one at my son's school, then I give up. Because the teacher asked me to help, and then I give up. I passed that girl to the security guard. He went inside the security guard part, started throwing everything out to the road. Then I called the father, come and find the doctor.
So I would suggest if the tantrum is just one of loudness and crying, I would give them a little while to just, first of all, I would just say something to them like I've said before, and I usually use a word like silly or something. You know, that's silly to act like that. You don't need to act like that. And maybe say to the other kids in the class, you don't like to act like that, do you? And most of them will say no. You say, it's kind of silly to do that, isn't it? And they say, yeah. And we say, so we'll be really happy when Ahmed gets over, quits doing that and comes back, because we really like him and we want him to come back, don't we? And then let him hear all those things. Then let him just go on with it for a while if he wants to. If he persists for a very long time, I think that the thing to do, because that can become disruptive to the class, to take him out and let him sit somewhere with a teacher who's not doing something. And he can come back whenever he feels like coming back. The whole idea is, if tantrums don't get any reward, then tantrums are not going to continue. So when he goes and sits with the teacher doesn't console him and all sorts of things. The teacher just keeps an eye on him, doesn't give him any reward. I think that's about the best we can do. Now, but if the tantrum behavior were to include wanting to hit anybody or throw anything, it is okay to physically restrain the children with the least amount of force it takes. And because these are little kids and we're a lot bigger than them, you know, it's quite easy to physically restrain a little child, and then just take them out and have them sit with a teacher and say to them, you know, you will not be allowed to do that. And if the behavior was that bad, I would say immediately the parent would need to be talked to that day. The parents have to get involved in helping the child not to do that. I don't think we'll have that. I don't, from seeing the kids who will be in the school, I really doubt that level would happen. I think the most we would get would be like a crying tantrum. But we do have to consider what to do. So if anyone's going to hurt anyone or destroy any property or hurt themselves, then you have to actually physically restrain them and not give them the opportunity to. Make it really clear to them that's not okay to do. And if they were to maintain that behavior even through the day for a long time, it would probably be best to call the parent through the day, tell the parent that what the problem is. Like I said, I don't think we'll face that.
I have experience when one of the children, since first day, every time she's home, she will cry. Every time. It's going on the whole month then. Then I never stop with every day. But then this took time until 4 months to make close to me, and then just want to drag it down. So how to deal with this kind of thing?
Once again, if it's going to be a long-term thing like that, we have to bring the parents in and get the parents to talk to the child to try and get the child over that. I don't like the idea of letting that thing like that go on for months, but I have heard that kind of story quite a few times. Some children will maintain crying for a very long time, which to me says they've been rewarded for crying on what's called a thin intermittent schedule. Now, you don't know exactly what that means, but a schedule where they can never tell whether they will get reward or not, and they don't get very much reward. So they are willing to try a very long time for the little bit of reward that might possibly come someday. And so if we have that kind of thing, we just try and develop a nice relationship with the child and suggest very heavily that's not an appropriate way to be, and it's not a fun way to be. You're missing out on all these fun things, and we really like you and really want you to be with them. Yes.
My son, when I first started sending him to a kindergarten, when I would leave him, he wouldn't cry. But when his father would leave him, he would start crying, and then the father would stay back. But with me, he would know that she's going to leave. So it doesn't matter if he cries or if he doesn't cry. So, I mean, he knew if he cried, the father would stay back.
Oh.
So when it was the father's turn to send him to the kindergarten, always he would cry.
See, children are really, really good at learning how to manipulate the environment with their behavior. Really good. See, this is why, to me, it's a surprise. It took as long as until B.F. Skinner came along for someone to realize that there were a set of rules people learn by, because people have learned by those rules very well for thousands of years, and nobody actually realized that there was a lawful relationship to how all those things work. So those kind of patterns, one of the things you want to do, if there's any behaviors that are inappropriate behaviors, you always want to break those patterns. Basically, that's what a lot of helping people to change is, breaking an ongoing pattern that they have learned. So anyway, as one of your activities, put down one of your activities, two activities you need to actually do when you're all working together as a group. Make up a list of all the different possibilities that might happen the first day and suggestions on how to deal with them, so that everybody knows and everybody will be dealing the same way. And one of the things that's going to be important in the school, several times you've seen me say about the importance of consistency, right? It's important, consistency is important in two different ways. One, that you always act the same way in the same situation. You know, like if a child does something wrong, you don't sometimes let them get away with it and sometimes not. You always deal with it. The other thing about consistency is all of the teachers need to work on the same set of rules and follow up with the same kind of consequences. So the children will get to know in the school environment, this just is the way it is and there's no other way. And basically once somebody learns learns what really is acceptable and not acceptable in the environment, and there's no variation to that, they will basically go along with whatever the environment is, particularly in a situation like we have set up where there'll be lots and lots of reward for going along. It's almost impossible then. Then the other thing is what was the other list? Rules for the school. Yeah.
We will be making these lists today. We are making these lists today.
Yeah, they're two separate lists. One plan for the first day, what all might happen the first day and how to deal with it. Because that first day is really going to be critical. We want the first day to go well and the children to learn. The last thing in the world we want the children to learn that first day is what kind of things they can get away with. We want them to learn you can't get away with anything. But we also want them to learn that everyone's going to be very nice to them. So also on that first day, you want to be sure that there's lots and lots of good relationship making between yourselves and the kids, and hopefully to have some fun activities for the kids, and to tell them about how much fun school will be, and try and tell them how exciting it's going to be to learn, and set up some self-fulfilling prophecies for the kids on the first day. Self-fulfilling prophecies in a positive, about all the positive things that will come. How much fun you'll have here, and how much you'll learn, and how good this will be for your life. And when you get older, you'll remember like coming here the first day, and you'll think, oh, that was a really nice time, things like that. On number 29, I talked about this at the very beginning of when we started talking. All the teachers need to learn everything well. How do we achieve this? The training will be an intensive learning process. So how do you feel you're going on learning everything? Yes.
What I think is that after January onwards, we should continue with, if not every day, then every other or third day, with maybe half an hour or 45 minutes with you.
But I mean, I will probably be talking to everybody every day about some of these things. Right? Because like I said, I'll be in every classroom, not all day, but I mean, I'll be in, while everybody is teaching, several times a day I'll be in your classroom while you're teaching. And I'll try and go around and be helpful with the kids, but also I'll be watching to see that the way you're teaching is the most successful way possible. And if there's things that are not going so well, then I'll mention them and give suggestions on maybe how to fix them.
And training as well.
Yeah, we need to have continued periodic training. I mean, right now you haven't been in the classroom with the kids, so there are things that you can't ask me. But after you've been in the classroom with the kids for a while, I'm sure there will be things that you might like to ask. I mean, and I am very optimistic, and I'm being very optimistic about what I expect, but I'm also a realist, and I know everything's not going to go perfectly all the time. And no matter how much we plan for, there will probably be some surprises. So we'll need to discuss them. But basically, see, just as we were talking about with the kids about the policy or zero tolerance policy on wrong behavior, we want to have, in general in the school, a zero tolerance of anything that is not right. So everything that ever goes wrong, we try and fix it. We don't just let it go. Another thing which isn't on my list here, but I should have put on my list. There's a thing called the Continuous Improvement Plan, referred to as CIP, Continuous Improvement Plan. And this idea actually came from Japan. When I was young, if you were to buy anything and it didn't work or it broke really quickly, you say, oh, that was made in Japan. No matter where it was made, right? Japan was known, when I was young, for making junk. They tried to copy things that other people made, and they made really bad copies. And the things, you know, fell apart quick. So it just became like a way of thinking. Anything that didn't work, you say, oh, it must be made in Japan. But nowadays, even America would love to make cars as good as they make in Japan. They make cars more defect-free in Japan than they do in the U.S. The U.S. cannot make, and some Japanese technology is beyond American technology. Now, how did they get from being a joke in the world to being the best? They introduced in Japan a policy called CIP, Continuous Improvement Plan. And what this plan is that every time you find something that is wrong, you fix it. But after you have fixed it, you don't feel like now everything is okay. You look for a way to make it better. And after then you make it better, you don't say that's okay. You look for another way to make it better. And you never ever stop it. See, continuous, it's a process that goes on forever. Nothing is ever good enough, right? No matter how good something gets, it's just a step before the new improved one. And that's something that we should try for in the school. Everything we do, we should be trying to improve. Whatever teaching skills you have and teaching methods you have, and personal skills and that, no matter how good they are, you can improve. And once you improve them, then you start looking for another way to improve from that level. And we want to teach the children this idea in their lives. See, to me, this is a very Islamic concept. You know, continuous improvement plan. That's exactly what a Muslim life is supposed to be about. Continuous improvement towards being an ideal Muslim. And you never finish. I mean, the ideal Muslim is perfect in every way. And the only one perfect in every way is Allah. So that means it's a process that can go on forever. And you can improve forever. So there's no end point to it. We need the children to understand that. And we need them to feel that that is something that they are really lucky to know and how helpful it will be for them in their life. This is another important thing. When you're telling children something, it's important to tell them every once in a while how important these things will be in their life. You know, you say, right now you are just little kids, and it doesn't seem like some of these things matter. But, you know, someday you're going to be a grown-up, and you'll have a family, and you'll have a job, and you'll get an education, and these things that you are learning now are going to really help you a lot in your life. So we want them to get that idea into their mind, that we are giving them things that will help them in their life. And then also self-fulfilling prophecy, to expect that these things will help them in their life. So we want to add the continuous improvement plan to part of our overall school policy.
So we are never satisfied with what we have, with what we have.
Well, I mean, you can be happy with what you have, but not satisfied in that you know, even though it's wonderful, you can have wonderful plus. And you may have noticed many people in their lives just reach a point and stay there. And to some degree, if I had to make a judgment on an age, I would say on the average in in humanity, probably somewhere around 25 years old, people quit progressing. Certainly quit academically progressing in knowledge, right? And many people, when they're 75, don't know a whole lot more than when they were 25. I mean, that's a shameful thing, you know? You wasted 50 years of Allah's giving you that special brain to learn knowledge. So,
But for computer, it takes less than 20. For computers, most of the genius and expert in computers, they need it below 20.
and what? Well,
People say that, I do not know whether the one is proven or not. But
No.
most of the computer genius, they are below 20.
but this is a general thing in all of the sciences, and even artistically, like in literature and that. It's considered most people who do something of huge significance in their life do it before 30.
Before 30.
Yeah. You know, most really big breakthroughs. I mean, Albert Einstein was probably 30 or less when he came up with his his theories of relativity. And then, not to be mean about Einstein, but you know, the whole rest of his life, he basically relied on the fame he gathered from those early theories. And I don't know of any other thing he did in his whole life. You know, what he had to offer humanity and physics sort of ended after his theories of relativity. Anyway, back on this question, all the teachers need to learn everything. You remember the other day when we did that exam, not the CPI, the verbal exam, when I asked questions about how much you know about learning. And we came to the conclusion everybody had the general idea, but almost everybody was lacking in knowledge of the specifics. So that would say everybody hasn't learned everything. But how do you feel about how confident your knowledge is so far about what I've been teaching in the past week and a half? You feel you have a pretty good idea overall on everything?
You are getting on this, yes. But you are getting to fit for reality.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to know what it's like until we step into the classroom with the kids.
Especially for those who have never been given the opportunity to take over the small kids. Sudah better off for my case. We have been teaching the adult students so far. Then we have to lower the technique down so that we can suit the small kids. Sometimes because that one it sounds too simple, but small kids need some more explanation to why things happen. That's why we need to really lower it down. That's the kind of thing that personally I worry.
Is there anybody who is feeling very unprepared to go into the classroom? See, this is true. Being a teacher is very much like being a parent. This is why I often don't distinguish much between the classes I teach for parents and teachers. It's very, very close to the same thing. Actually, in the West, this concept is no longer accepted, but I think it's still a valid one. For much of the history of education, when children were given over to teachers to teach them, there was a Latin term that described the relationship, and it was called in loco parentis. And in Latin, in loco parentis means in the place of the parent. And so when the children are with you, you are really taking the place of the parent for that time. And taking the place of the parent means taking the responsibility of the parent. So aside from the fact that you have an obligation to teach them academically, you also have the same kind of responsibilities toward them that you would have toward your own children. Has it been discussed yet about, or any arrangements made for somebody to tell you about actual teaching techniques in the classroom? I mean, I don't do teaching of subject. I don't teach how to teach subjects. And you remember, was our plan to have somebody get somebody from the ministry, or if we can't get from the ministry, somebody who would be very knowledgeable about that way? And Sister Sophie at Adney was supposed to organize something about that. Anyway, be sure all this happens, right? Because this is another thing that will help you, because most of you are not actually well-experienced teachers. So the more somebody can come and tell you. I think maybe also if we could get somebody to come from Jayas and talk to us about how they like to have their religious curriculum taught. They'd probably be very happy to send somebody, because they probably don't get offers all that often.
One more thing about this behavior in the classroom. I'm not sure in our school, but how do we deal with this couch potato? Because this is to develop very much, because like yesterday from the program for children, at least 3 out of 9 so they're not very participative, and then these kind of children, they are very well fed by the parents. So what happens is, and then they end up liking either television or computer, because they like to browse internet, and then they like very much computer games. So what happens is, I can see the pattern seems to go this way. They have, in the classroom, they seem to have this all sorts of imagination. You know, what I can do is, the only thing that I can do is actually call them back to come into the discussion. Because they seem, sometimes when I talk about it and everybody was very participative, and then all of a sudden it's kind of, so how long could, how long can I do that, start calling, is there any other way?
Well, you've got to change them. I mean, it's not appropriate to continue getting somebody to participate by calling them to participate. You need to change them so they participate, by their will. Some of you may not be familiar with this term, couch potato. It came about from what happened with television in the U.S. Like when I was young, before television came, everybody was quite active. You go out and play sports. But then after television came, people quit playing sports and just sit around or lie around and watch TV and watch other people play sports. And people who do that were referred to as couch potatoes. Like you just sort of, potato lies there and grows roots, right? And so the idea is people just grow roots into their chair or their couch and don't participate in the world. And this is, and often it's not just a matter of being overweight. You know, some people are overweight, but they don't have what I would call the couch potato look. But Rashida knows that there were a few kids in the school we were at. When I saw them, I said, "Oh, look, you know, he really looks like a couch potato," and always they were. You know, so it's not just a matter of body size; it's a matter of you just look like you're just a blob of flesh rather than, you know, you can be thin strong or heavy strong, but just it's hard to describe, but I'm sure you know this. And we don't want to encourage that. We definitely want to encourage children to be participators in life. You know, and this is also a very Islamic concept.
So that requires parents' role, is it? We have to discuss the parents.
Well, I mean, everything. See, after we get going in the school and we get to know the kids a bit, then it would probably be, see, the parents know not only do they have to come to some meetings before school starts, but they have to come to, we didn't put an exact number, but I said 2 or 3 meetings through the school year. And it would be good if we could have specific plans for different kids. I mean, you'll get to know their needs. I don't know if I told you I used to do this, but when I was in a school, and there was like maybe 500 kids, I used to always just keep a little notebook with me, just a small notebook I keep in my pocket. And when I would notice anything about a child that I thought was a behavior that needed to be changed, I just note it down in there. And then, until I got it fixed in my memory, I just sort of have a look at it each day or something. And then I would remember it, and when my time came to interact with that child, I would just say the kind of things that might try and help them move along. And so you should, all of you, with the children in your class, become familiar with everybody's going to have some different kind of needs, right? Everybody should be progressing toward the fulfillment of their potential in everything. Some people will be progressing toward their potential in some things, and maybe not moving at all in others. So you need to be looking for that. And if there are things that need to be done both in the school and in the home, then we find a nice way to talk to the parents about it also. Because we do expect there to be a lot of parent involvement, and the parents realize that in this school, you know, it's a special privilege to get your child in the school, and one of the things you have to do is be sufficiently interested to be able to want to do some work to help your child at home also. It's not just a school responsibility.